Again, welcome everyone. Appreciate taking the time joining in today to our Coffee and Learn series. Today in the series, we have collections don't have to be scary. We're going to take a look at NetSuite's Dunning module and see what that looks like. So let me go to the next slide here. Today's agenda, we'll kind of take a look at the NetSuite overview of the Dunning module, see how that works and looks like visually before we go into the demo. And then we're going to proceed to the demo, and I'll leave 5 minutes at the end for some Q&As. Just so everyone is not staring at my face, I'm going to take myself off of video, if that's okay. So before we start, let's do quick intros. To who may not know me, my name's Adar Shir. I'm a NetSuite consultant here at Oasis. I've been at Oasis for approximately 2 years and been in the NetSuite ecosystem for approximately 2 years. I'm a NetSuite admin certified. I specialize in process improvement, customizations, and core accounting. And I graduated from University of Louisville, have my master's in data science and my bachelor's in economics. Woohoo. Now let's jump into the solution overview. So in order for us to know what Dunning is, we really need to know what problems Dunning solve, right? So Dunning solve something your typical AR team encounters daily, right? So past due receivables, no efficient way of communicating with your customers to collect payments in a professional manner. The visibility, that's a big challenge right there. So really hard to find those overdue invoices. And if the customer may already receive that notification or even paid it, right? And then lastly, the process, right? So manually sending those emails or mailing letters on an inconsistent basis, it just takes too much time, right? And then it results in bad customer relations, right? So that's what really Dunning solves. It gives you that consistent automated communication to remind those customers of their overdue balances and invoices. It gives you the full visibility from end to end, right? So seeing those overdue invoices all the way to the customer record, right? So we can see all the communication tied back to the customer. And then lastly, you finally put a process in place of how you want to reach out to customer and how that communication looks like, right? All of those things the Dunning module solves for us. Now, next slide, let's kind of see how that looks like, right? So first, we set up a Dunning strategy, right? Dunning strategy is really how, when, and how frequent we want to reach out to customers, which customers, how do we want to reach out in terms of verbiage, right? What that looks like. After we identify those pieces, then we can go ahead and set up Dunning. Setting up Dunning is really simple. And it can vary from very simple to actually very complex, but for the most part, it's very simple. We set up an email template with your verbiage that you choose. We set up the Dunning level rules. Those dictate our buckets of time we want to reach out to customers with overdue invoices. That can be 7 days, then 14 days, then 21, right? We can customize those however you want. And then we wrap up with the Dunning procedure, which that dictates which customers we want to include in that strategy, right? And then eventually we take a look at the customer settings and what we can do there and what's our preferences. After the setup, we continue to actually working with the Dunning procedure and messaging those emails and letters, and eventually have some reports available to us to kind of see where we're standing with that. Um, and again, those reports that are available to us, we'll take a look into them in just a minute. So let's just jump straight into it. So let me stop sharing for a second so I can go into NetSuite, and I'm in the demo account. Awesome. So right now I'm logged in into NetSuite with the Dunning Director role. right? So we get two roles out of the box, but again, we can adjust those. And those roles do come with a pre-established dashboard with a set of reminders to remind us what's going on with the dunning procedure, right? We have a customer safe search. You see all the customers that are involved in the dunning procedure. Um, we have invoices, right, that are being um, evaluated daily by the dunning procedure. We have some KPIs, right? All of those comes pre-established in the role. Now let's just jump straight into the setup, right? So let's say we established a strategy, right, and we're ready to set up dunning. So like I said, jumping back to my PowerPoint, I have those steps I have to take, right? So initially we have to set up an email template, right? An email template, it's just the verbiage we attach to your emails where we send to customers with how we want to um, communicate with them, right? After we establish that, and that looks like so. So here I have my email templates, one for each level of dunning, and I can choose the verbiage in them. Then we move on to setting up the dunning template. So if I go to dunning setup, dunning templates, right here I have those pre-established templates, but again, we can customize those. And let's take a look into one of them. So if I open one of those levels, so level 1, 7 days overdue reminder, we can see what it consists of. So here I have my 7 days overdue bucket. I can choose to attach copies of invoices, attach copies of invoices that are only overdue, or any invoice. And I can also work with statements, right? I can attach statements, have custom dates. And once I'm done with that, that's where I define my email template, right? So the verbiage going out to the customer. From here, after we set up this part, we can jump into the dunning level rules. So again, if I go back to my PowerPoint, we have the email template, we're in the dunning template. Now we're going to the dunning level rule. Dunning level rule is under dunning, setup, and then dunning level rule. Let me click leave. Here's my dunning level rule, right? The dunning level rule looks very similar to our dunning template, but here we can further define our template, right? Have a little bit more criteria set up on how we want to do that. So let's jump again to the level 1 since we're taking a look at that. I'm gonna just click edit there. Right, so here we can see we have very few little fields, right? We have the name, and then that's where we establish the date, or sorry, I should say the timing of when we're emailing out the dunning, right? So here we can see 7 days overdue. I can define currency. So if you do use multiple currencies, you can set those here. And over here on the right, I can set up this level rule based on a minimum transaction amount or a total overdue balance, right? So if I don't want to include invoices that are not above $10 or total customer balance that's less than 100, you can do that. And we can further customize that. Next, after we established our templates, the dunning level rule, we have to set up the dunning procedure. Under the dunning procedure, that's where we really identify our audience based on set of criteria. So if I go to the screen, I see the dunning procedure list, and I already have those predefined in this account. So we're going to take a look at this global dunning procedure and see how that looks like. So we're going to click edit. So here in this screen, we have a little more fields to populate. So firstly, we give a name to this dunning procedure. And again, this dunning procedure is being defined on the customer record after we're done. You can see here it's applied to customers. Here we set up the Dunning interval. The Dunning interval is how often you want it to evaluate the customer's overdue invoices. Under that, we see the sending schedule. So there are two ways we can do that. We can automatically have NetSuite send out the emails to customers based on the criteria we defined for overdue invoices, or we can do it manually. I would highly recommend starting out manually and emailing out of NetSuite. And then once you get the hang of things and you're live in production, it's very simple to come back here and switch it to automatic. Under the default Dunning manager, that's where we would set up our AR inbox, right? So we would set up an employee record in NetSuite with your preferred email that will send out from NetSuite to the customer. Right now, it's myself, just so we can see how that looks like in a minute. If I go a little bit lower, I can see some more criterias. For example, subsidiary. I can choose a subset of subsidiaries or the parent and apply it to all. I can apply to specific locations, departments, and classes. If I go a little lower under the safe search, I can, from this page, attach it to a subset safe search and grab only specific customers of your choosing. Or if you keep it blank, we'll have to manually add it to the customer record. If you see here a little lower under the safe search, we have the assign automatically to new records. That checkbox will automatically assign this procedure to any new customers that follow those criteria we set up. Down at the bottom, under levels, we have the determine Dunning level by. We can determine if we want to evaluate both the minimum transaction amount and the total overdue balance. So do we want to look on invoices that are over $10 and customer balances that are over 100, or we want one or the other? So we can do either or. And under here, where it says Dunning level rule, we can define our Dunning notices, right? So the buckets of time. If you notice here, I have another cool thing, which is the advance notice. We can send a reminder to customers 7 days before an invoice is due as well. And you can see that here on the right side where it says days overdue, it says -7. After this step where we define our Dunning procedure, we're ready to apply directly to the customer. So again, if I go back to my PowerPoint, I can see here that part of the Dunning setup was consistent on the email templates, the Dunning templates and level rules. We just set up the Dunning procedure and now we set it up on the customer record. So if I go back, I already have a customer record here that's ready for us to take a look into. So once logging into the customer screen, we'll see how we set up the Dunning procedure. So I'm going to click edit on my customer just because I like to see it like that. Once I'm in edit mode, we will notice an additional subtab that previously is not there. So it's called the Dunning subtab. So if I go to my Dunning subtab on the customer record, I can see a few fields that popped up. I have the allow letters to be emailed and I have allow letters to be printed. So you can either print emails out of NetSuite and you can also email them, right? We have two different options. I'm just keeping both on. We can also choose to not send letters to a customer email. So to the customer email, it refers to the default email out of the box. What we can do instead is we can set up specific recipients for those Dunning notices, right? So we can set up here as contacts, and we can also set a specific Dunning level, right? So if invoices that are overdue 7 days needs to go to one specific recipient, but let's say invoices that are already 21 days overdue needs to go to someone else, we can definitely do that. We can also copy the sales rep on the customer record if you do have it populated. Under the procedure setup subtab, we can actually define a procedure. So if you take a look all the way at the right here, this is where we set up the dunning procedure. And this is already set up to the global dunning procedure. But if we had multiple different procedures, we can choose them from this list if they do apply to this customer with the set of criteria we said, such as the subsidiary location, etc. We can assign a dunning manager to this specific customer. What that's going to do, it's going to give this dunning manager some notices on their dashboard for overdue invoices, customers that dunning has been sent out, things like that. We can also pause dunning temporarily with a simple click of a checkbox. Once we click pause dunning, we can put a dunning or pause reason and save the record, and it'll pause sending dunning or stop sending dunning to this customer. So once we evaluated and saw how all those setup steps looks like, now we're ready to send out those dunning emails. So like I said, because of the demo, I am going to manually send it so we see how that looks like. But like I said, we can either do it automatically or manually. So from this screen, I'm going to hover over Dunning and I'm going to go all the way down to letters and choose email. If I do that, it's going to take us to the email queue. Once we get to the email queue, we'll see all customers that are evaluated based on the procedure we set up. So right here, I do have a few options on the screen before I take a look at his list. This list can get long, and sometimes I can use the filters up at the top to really minimize this list I'm looking at. So I can set up a specific customer, a subsidiary, even a dunning procedure and a dunning level. From here, I can take a look at all the customers that Dunning evaluate daily. If you remember on the procedure, we set up the interval to be daily. So this list will daily populate with new customers that meet our criteria. You can see the customer name, the subsidiary, who is the recipient, the level they're meeting, the Dunning procedure, and then some other information that's relevant. From here, I can simply mark the customers that I want to send out the dunning notices to, right? I'm going to just choose one and I can simply hit send. Once I hit send, it's going to email directly to the recipient we established on the customer record. Now, I already prepared a couple of examples of how those look like. First, customer receives an attached copy of their invoice, and second, they receive the Dunning letter. So if we open the Dunning letter, that's how the Dunning letter looks like. And again, this is coming from the email template we set up. So we see the customer name, the date, some information about their account being past due, a list of invoices that are past due, and some more information on where to go and pay that. And then we also get a copy of the invoice attached as a PDF to the email. If I go back to the screen, this is still loading. From here, once we've established all the setup and all the procedure, and we saw how we're emailing manually, again, with a click of a button, we can send it automatically so we do not have to do that. But we do recommend to start off manually. And once you feel comfortable with how this looks like, you can easily switch it back to your automatic procedure. So from here, after I emailed out of this page, we can see back on the customer record. So if I go back to my customer record, I can see how everything is tied back to my customer. So if I go to my customer and under communication and messages, I can see right here this Dunning email. So we see who sent it. We see the primary recipient. We see what's the subject, right? So we see here third notice, overdue payment. And then we see the attached letter and the attached invoice. So again, we have that full visibility from end to end on our procedure and on our, on, our, on our, processes. If I go back to my dashboard, I reviewed the initial um, slide, right? This the Dunning director role. We can see some really useful reminders here, like overdue invoices, invoices with pause Dunning, number of customers with the Dunning procedure set up. So again, we have a pre-established module that comes with all those KPIs and reporting tools that allows you to really make your life easier with that. Um, Now I know I said I left 5 minutes for Q&A. Before that, Oasis did come up with a custom process that mimics this Dunning module. Again, this is a NetSuite official Dunning module. Oasis came up with a solution to accommodate for custom needs of customer needs for AR invoices without having to have the Suite app installed by just using safe searches and workflows. So if anyone is interested in Dunning or has any questions that are beyond the scope of, just a quick technical question, you can reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have. Um, Now, so again, wanted to say thank you all for joining. I hope that this was useful information. Um, and I did leave a few minutes for some Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, we'll have some time to review that now.